Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Kordamt, and today we're going to be talking about Total War Shogun 2 Fall of the Samurai. Total War Shogun 2 is a game which received two expansions during its lifetime. The first one was called Rise of the Samurai, and then the second and final one, this one, Fall of the Samurai. So essentially we have three Total War Shogun 2 games, each set in its own time period. The first expansion, Rise of the Samurai, being the earliest one, takes place in 12th century Japan. The base game takes place in the 16th century, and then finally Fall of the Samurai, being the more modern one out of the three, takes place in the 19th century. So, in case you don't know, I am on a quest right now to try out as many Total War games as I can after falling in love with the style with Total War Warhammer 3. I have played that game a lot, I love it very much, so I wanted to see what I've been missing out on with the other Total War titles. After doing some research, looking at some reviews, I began my journey with Total War Shogun 2. I saw a lot of people speaking very highly about the game. I enjoy that it's set in Japan, and I also like the setting and the time period. My goals, by the way, just so you have some idea of what I'm doing here, my goals for trying any Total War game is I want to go over the entire tutorial section because I want to get accustomed to the game. I want to see how different the gameplay mechanics are, the units and stuff like that. And then my main purpose is I want to be able to successfully complete a legendary campaign with any of the available factions before moving on to any other Total War game. And that's what I did with Total War Shogun 2, the base game. I did that with the Shosokabe clan. I also made a video talking about my experience with Total War Shogun 2. I can leave a link up here in case you guys want to check it out. And I'm aiming to do something very similar in this video, but for the Fall of the Samurai expansion. So the purpose of this video really is to just share my thoughts on the Fall of the Samurai expansion based on my experience playing the game. You can look at this as kind of like my brief review of the game. I will go over what I consider to be the good and the bad aspects of the game, what I enjoyed the most. I will definitely be making some comparisons as well between the Fall of the Samurai expansion and the base game, because there are some noteworthy differences between them. And at the end of the video, I will also give a brief overview of how my campaign went, because I enjoy talking about these games and I like discussing how the campaign started, how it progressed, what issues we had, and how eventually we led it into victory. Something also noteworthy to mention. Why am I starting with the Fall of the Samurai expansion instead of the Rise of the Samurai expansion, given that this one is the second one? The reason for that is, I looked for reviews over both expansions, and I actually saw a lot of people speaking kind of poorly about the Rise of the Samurai expansion. Mostly people just saying that don't even bother playing the expansion, just go for the base game. This is their opinion. I haven't played the game, I don't know if it's true or not. I still want to play it and form my own opinions, but at the same time, I was seeing a lot of people speaking very highly about the Fall of the Samurai expansion, especially praising the modern units and the gunpowder gameplay as well. So, given that, and given that I actually wanted to see how the gunpowder gameplay played out, because it's different for me, I began with the Fall of the Samurai campaign. So, my experience in this game is going to be based on a legendary campaign with the Aizu clan. In hindsight, it was a mistake. I would definitely not recommend the Aizu clan for a new player starting out Fall of the Samurai, especially if you go for the higher difficulties. It is a hard campaign start, just like it says over there, and it can get frustrating at times for a variety of reasons which I will go over during the course of this video. Still, I am stubborn, I know, and if something can be beaten, I want to try and beat it, so after a lot of failed attempts, I was able to beat it, and I'm quite proud of my achievement. So yeah, my experience with the game is based on the Aizu clan. The reason why I started with the Aizu clan is very simple. When you go for a new campaign, the game defaults into the Aizu clan. I don't know why. Maybe there's some kind of historical reason to look at the Aizu clan first? I don't know. I just kind of went with it. I would definitely say that if you are someone interested in trying out this game, but you don't want to have a very frustrating experience, I would definitely recommend the Josai clan, because they start in a nice corner. The Satsuma clan, for the same reason, they start on a corner. I suppose Tosa can also be a good starting point. And also the Saga clans. And I say this because each of these clans that I mentioned, so Saga, Tosa, Satsuma, and Josai, they all start in a what I would call a favorable position. Because they're in a corner, they don't have to worry about being surrounded. That's the main reason why I would suggest trying out these clans if you want to start your, experience in Fall of the Samurai, but not have such a hard time. So let's begin this video by discussing how Fall of the Samurai compares to the base Shogun 2 campaign. And the first thing we can see right now is right from the start of the new campaign screen, we can see something very different over here. In the base game, you can pick between 10 available clans, same amount in the Fall of the Samurai expansion, but in this game, you have a separation here. You have 5 clans which hold allegiance to the shogunate, and then you have 5 clans which hold allegiance to the emperor. So you have the shogunate and you have the imperials. To me, this was a very cool thing to see when I opened up this screen, because, when I play a Total War game, I enjoy the, what you typically enjoy in this game, which is, killing your enemies, the battles, conquering, expanding your territory, all that kind of stuff. But I also really enjoy the diplomacy aspect of the game. One of my favorite things to do in these games is form alliances. Because I like the idea of having friends in my campaign, but there is also a very big strategic element to it. So if you are surrounded by other clans, there is a real risk that you might engage in war with them, become positioned in a very, very poor position, and then, you're surrounded, you can get killed off very, very easily. However, if you are able to form alliances, or just overall get better relationships with adjacent clans, it is less likely to be attacked from that side. As an example, with the Aizu, we start surrounded. So one idea would be, if I can make an alliance or just become friendly with the clans north of me, I don't have to worry about this part of the map. And in the same sense, if I make friends with people on this side, I don't have to worry with this part either. I can just focus on dealing with this portion of the map. So yeah, I do enjoy having alliances in these games. So when I see that we have 2, let's call them factions or allegiances, my mind immediately jumped to, okay, so I'm gonna have friends right from the start. If I play with the Aizu, I'm gonna have 4 potential allies right from the start. And if you look at the victory conditions, and I don't know who decided to put a white font over this background, but whatever. It says right here, capture and hold 14 provinces, this is for the short campaign, and in addition, ensure at least 35 provinces are held by forces loyal to the shogun, because we're playing as a faction allied to the shogunate. Notice it doesn't say that I need to control 35 provinces, it just needs to be held by forces loyal to the shogun. So it's another indicator that these are gonna be my friends, my allies, whatever you want to call them. We are working towards the same goal. It also gives me, or I thought it gave me, a clear vision of what my objectives would be, which is, if I'm swearing allegiance to the shogunate, my enemies are the imperials, right? It gives you a good notion of what you want to do in the game, and I like that. So, without further ado, let's actually jump into my campaign here. because it's going to be easier and more visual to go over the various elements I want to cover in this video by looking at what we can see in the map. Still a beautiful game. It preserves pretty much all of the artwork and the style that you have in the base game, as well as the music, so very, very cool that they maintain that. And here we are. We are looking at the campaign map. If you look over here at the minimap, you can see it's a very similar thing to what you have in the base game. We still have our multiple islands representing Japan. You know, they're covered by multiple different clans with different allegiances. And they also have their own strategic elements, just like in the base game. For example, this island being isolated with only a single choke point for people wanting to go by foot is of strategic importance. You have this island over here, which is also isolated, you can only go by boat, and the same thing over here. So it's a very similar experience in terms of the gameplay map. You still have your settlements, you move your armies in very similar fashion, so in that sense, if you've played the base game, it's going to feel similar playing Fall of the Samurai. One of the major differences though, and this is one of the things that people give a lot of praise to Fall of the Samurai, is in terms of your available units and your army composition. Because in this game, not only do you have different units, just like in any other Total War game, but you also have kind of like a separation. You have traditional units, and then you have modern units. Traditional units would be more melee focused, and then your modern units are more focused on gunpowder. As an example here, I'm looking at my army. I have one traditional unit. This guy might actually also be traditional. But we have one traditional unit here, which is a Yariki, which is basically just spear cavalry, spearmen mounted on horses. And then we have modern units, which are infantry equipped with rifles, and we even have artillery in the form of these Armstrong guns, which are cannons. So there's a clear difference between what you can recruit, and I think I can show it very easily here in the recruitment screen. Where do I actually have a dojo? I think it's... Is it here? Yeah. So here we have a legendary dojo, which allows us to recruit a lot of traditional units. So we would have something like bow cavalry, we have Yari cavalry, we have ninjas, we have katana samurais, we have spear samurai, we have spear levy, bow kachi. We even have matchlock kachi, which are the only gunpowder units you get from the traditional line. And then you also have, yeah, these guys are also traditional, the Shinzengumi police force. So these would all be your traditional units recruited from the dojo. And then you have the modern units, which you can recruit. I think I have actually a good place over here, I think. Let me see. Yeah, military academy. This would give us access to different things, like we have saber cavalry, we have revolver cavalry, carbine cavalry, and then we have multiple different types of line infantry. And line infantry is just basically infantry equipped with rifles. So there's a clear difference if you want to play with traditional units or if you want to play with modern units. I would say the Shogunate allied clans are more aligned to play as traditionalists. Even my clan, the Aizu clan, one of its traits is called the traditionalists. It buffs traditional units. And I would say the Imperials are more aligned to playing with modern units. That's not to say that if you play with a Shogunate clan, you cannot play with modern units, and if you play with the Imperials, you cannot play with traditional units. Not the case. You can play however you want. Just, you know, we have an example here. I am mixing traditional units with modern units. This, by the way, was the result of an auto-resolve battle. I didn't care. I wanted to capture the settlement. I took some losses. You would see some more traditional units here, especially in the form of melee infantry. I'll explain why they are cool in a little while. But yeah, I do like to mix and match a little bit in my armies, and you are free to do so in any way that you want. So I do like that change in comparison to the base game that you have Shogunate versus Imperials and traditional versus modern units as well. Something that I also like, that I kind of criticized in my thoughts video about Shogun 2, is in regards to building your settlements. Because one thing you have in the base game is, you typically don't want to build tall. You don't really want to improve every single building you have in every single settlement you capture. That's actually a detriment for your expansion. It's counterintuitive, I know, but that's just the way the game works. Since in that game you have a food mechanic, which notice we do not have it here, you need food to upgrade your buildings, and you don't really have infinite food, which restricts you in the amount of settlements you can upgrade. Which means you end up having a lot of very basic settlements that you can't really get the benefits of the improved buildings because of that. In this game, however, the food mechanic is not present. You don't have to worry about food to upgrade your buildings or food for affecting town growth or public order. You can just level up your buildings however you want. And naturally, the more you upgrade your buildings, the more benefits you get. So I think this is a much better approach. I like that we can upgrade our settlements, make them better, get more income out of them, get better units, get better defenses. I think it's just a better system than what you have in the base game. So a very nice change in my opinion. We also have something interesting here that I've mentioned briefly when I was talking about the whole Shogunate versus Imperials. Again, we're looking at the map at the end of the campaign. This is not what you would see when you start a new campaign, right? But one thing you can notice when we hover over this and we look at the bonuses and penalties on diplomacy, you will see that second bonus over there, same allegiance. We have a plus 75. And if we look at an enemy clan, we will see different allegiance minus 150. So just by having this mechanic in the game, when you start a campaign, you are going to have a good notion of what are your potential enemies and your potential allies, much better than if if it's just another clan swearing allegiance to the same thing. In the base game, you don't have that notion. You do have it here, and I like that we have that. Again, for the same reason I mentioned before, I like the idea of having friends and forming alliances, so I think that plays out in a good way for your diplomatic purposes and agreements. There's also a big problem with this, but I'll get into that once we go into the bad stuff. The other main difference, I think, between this game and the base game is regarding Realm Divide. So Realm Divide is a very, very big and important mechanic in Shogun 2. If you don't know what it is, I'll briefly explain it. In the base game, once you reach a certain amount of fame, just like we have here, and fame is something that rises or increases when you win battles or when you capture settlements, mostly when you capture settlements. When you get to maximum fame, a Realm Divide event happens. In the base game, what that translates into is the Shogunate, the Shogun faction, is going to rally every other clan in the game against you. Which, by default, just means you are now hostile against every other clan in the game. They will all declare war on you, and you are going to be in a dangerous position. This is not always the case. If you use clever use of mechanics and diplomacy, you might have an ally or two for some time, but eventually everybody will turn against you. In this game, we also have the Realm Divide event, triggered by the same event, which is reaching maximum fame. However, once Realm Divide hits in Fall of the Samurai, instead of everybody in the game becoming hostile towards you, what it does is it solidifies the position of each clan. So if a clan at the point of Realm Divide is swearing allegiance to the shogunate, they will remain allied to the shogunate for the rest of the game. If you are a shogunate clan, you become kind of like the, well, it says right there, the Aizu shogunal vanguard. You become the shogunal vanguard representing the shogunate, and every other clan that is of the shogunate allegiance can become your ally. And they will always remain with the allegiance to the shogunate, because you can swap allegiance if you so wish. Just like you can swap religion in the base game, you can swap your allegiance at any point in the game in Fall of the Samurai. So once Realm Divide hits, everybody that's of the Imperial allegiance will remain Imperial, everybody from the Shogunate will remain Shogunate. So this means that at that point, you can make alliances, reliable alliances, with anybody, any other clan that swears allegiance to the Shogunate in the game. And I like that, right? Because I get to play with allies. We can see over here on the minimap, everything painted black is my territory. And then we have this area here in dark blue is enemy, enemy over here, and enemy over here as well. But then this lighter blue are my allies, allies in green, and also allies in red. It might even be easier to check in the, yeah, it's easier to check over here. Everything in white, my territory. Everything in green, my allies, which like me very much. And then everything in red are my enemies. So we can see clearly that in my campaign I was able to leverage alliances to make use of their help throughout expanding through Japan. So to me, this difference in Realm Divide is very, very cool, and I like it very much that I get to play and solidify my position with allies in the game. Very, very cool. Okay, so those would be, I think, the main differences between, you know, the expansion and the base game. Let's now go into what I find to be the good and the bad about this game. And I will start with the bad, just to get it out of the way. So, I would say, generally speaking, let me just go over here to my general again. Generally speaking, I would say that everything that's bad, or that I consider to be bad in Shogun 2, is also kind of bad here. So the first two things I mentioned in my other video for Shogun 2, the main things I dislike in the game were diplomacy and naval warfare. Diplomacy, let's start with that one, in Fall of the Samurai is worse than in the base game, in my opinion. And I say this for a simple reason. And I've been praising the fact that we have the allegiances and the alliances and all that, but it's not as easy or as linear as that. Let's get into this. The reason why I say diplomacy is worse in this game, and I really dislike it, it's because when you start the game, you start with your allegiance. People around you will also have their own allegiances. You will also find that the southwestern portion of the map is mostly imperial clans, and then the northeastern portion of the map is based on shogunate allied clans. So as an example, you start in Fukushima here with your clan, or my clan, Aizu. You start over here in the settlement, and your initial enemy is right here, in Shimotsuke. This right here starts as an imperial clan. And you also have another imperial clan right here. So my logic, based on everything I saw at the start of the game, the victory conditions, blah blah blah, was, okay, I start here, my clans adjacent to me to the north are both shogunate clans, and the majority of what's over here is also swearing allegiance to the shogunate. So I thought, okay, I have friends up here, I'm going to trade with them, I am going to start working on my relationships with them, just make them even more friendly towards me. That makes sense. And I also start with a friend over here, the Nagaoka. They just start a campaign as your allies, so that's covered. And then over here you have Imperial and Imperial. So in my mind, there's a clear path of progression, right? I should come down, take care of this clan over here, and then go for this clan over here. This idea is further reinforced by the fact that what you have down here is the Josei, another shogunate clan, and over here you also have the Edo clan, which are also the shogunate clan. They literally are placed in the seat of power of the shogun. Okay, so it just makes sense. I capture and take out two imperialist clans. I am then surrounded by friends. I can start making my way west and start conquering imperial land. That's what makes sense to me. In reality, however, what happens is this. And I'll use an example. I take my army, I bring him to Shimotsuke, I take care of my initial enemy. All is good up this point. I begin trade with the clan up here, I begin trade with the clan up here, and eventually I either defeat the clan over here or the Josei take care of it as well. So at that point, I know in my diplomacy screen a lot of friendly clans. They're all adjacent to me. So, you know, I work trade agreements, I might even do a military alliance if I so choose with a given clan, and just, you know, work my way through my friends to solidify my position and my relationship with those clans. Now, to note, I don't tend to like to go for military alliances very early on, because if you do, you get pulled into wars which you might not want to get into at that point. So I mostly focus on trading and just overall finding some way to improve my relationship with adjacent friendly clans. It's mostly trading, to be honest. So what happened in reality was, I got to a position where I controlled Fukushima, I was trading with these two clans, I was trading with the Josei, I'm not sure if I was trading with Edo, but I was also very friendly with Edo, and everybody around me was literally very friendly, with major bonuses to diplomacy. And then, out of nowhere, from one turn to the other, the clan over here, the Josei, as an example, would just swap their allegiance. They would swap from the shogunate into imperials, which means they would give a massive penalty to our diplomatic relationship, become hostile, break all of my agreements, and declare war on me. To me, that's very stupid. In the base game, this also happens to a certain degree, but it's worse here, in my opinion, based on the allegiance mechanic. Just seeing somebody out of nowhere, just swapping allegiance and declaring war on what was a very friendly ally with trade agreements, military access or military alliances just a turn before, does not make sense to me at all. And this was not a rare occasion. This happened constantly. I got declared war by the Josei over here. The next turn, the Edo, the clan seated in the throne of power of the shogun, so basically the representatives of the shogunate, they would also swap from shogunate allegiance into imperialist, declare war on me again, and I would be basically surrounded. In the middle of all that, it's even possible they had made an alliance with my initial allies, the Nagaoka, which would then also join the war against me, even if they still were allied to the shogunate. So the diplomatic aspect of this game, in that sense, is just horrible. In my opinion, it's just horrible. And I tried this a number of times. A lot of times I tried to do this. I tried to I don't know, reinforce my position in different ways or just see if it was a rare situation. No, I was able to reproduce the problem constantly. And if these guys did not declare war on me, the Sendai up here would also swap allegiance and declare war on me as well. This clan later the same thing. Just swapping allegiances left and right, declaring war on you, not an enjoyable experience whatsoever. I also tried, instead of going down, going up, instead of going down, just making my way north. I found they would still declare war on me eventually, even if they did so a little bit later. That was part of my winning strategy, because they were occupied with other clans over here. I'll get into that when I go for my campaign overview. But yeah, overall, you can kind of make diplomacy work as long as the other clan is occupied at war with other imperial clans. And I'm not sure about this, but I think if you form military alliances early, it's also less likely they will betray you. Not really sure about this, but it worked for me at least. But yeah, diplomacy is bad, both in Fall of the Samurai as well as the base game. It is worse here, in my opinion. It does have the upside of when Realm Divide hits, you no longer need to worry about treason because they will become your allies, and that's that. Okay, so a big rant about that, I'm sorry, but it's a major point that I have with this game. The next thing I want to talk about is naval warfare. Naval warfare is something I consider to be also one of the worst things about Shogun 2 in the base game. I also consider it to be one of the worst things in Fall of the Samurai. However, in this expansion, I find that naval warfare can be both better than what you have in the base game, but simultaneously worse than what you have in the base game. So, why is that? I find it to be better because you are fighting with modern or more modern ships. You have cannon warfare. You're gonna have a bunch of cannons on your ships, like this one, for example, has 26 cannons, and you can see your ships blowing up enemy ships with your cannonballs or explosive rounds or armor-piercing rounds. I just find the overall manual resolution of naval warfare to be a lot more enjoyable here than what you do in the base game. So that is a big improvement in the enjoyment of naval warfare in Shogun 2. So I do see that as an improvement of this aspect of the game. Why is it also worse? Because just like you have in Shogun 2, the AI will spam fleet after fleet after fleet, and just all over the place. Again, it might be with a single ship or full stacks, all over the place, raiding your trade routes, attacking your own fleets, blockading your ports, doing naval invasions. And something that I think also makes things worse is that I find, I might be biased, I don't know, but I think there's a very strong anti-player bias in this game as well. And the reason why I say this is, once Realm Divide hit in this campaign, I had control over this area only. I had nothing on this side. So basically, everything from this point, or even this point, to the west, everybody was an enemy. With the exception of these guys here. Everybody was an enemy. So I had allies over here, and eventually they also gained more territory, as we can see here. But I found that 99% of the cases, or it seemed to me at least, I was getting naval invasion after naval invasion from every enemy clan in the game, including clans from over here, on this portion of the map. Instead of going after other clans over here, which would also be their enemies, they would just send ships all the way over here. I don't know why, but the AI has a real fetish about attacking this settlement. I have no clue why. Maybe it's because out of everything here, I even left this as the weakest stronghold type, because I think the AI goes for the weaker defenses. But they just love this island. They love it. They could have attacked me anywhere along this coast or along this coast. Not a single naval invasion in this area. And this lasted for 181 turns. It was a long time. So they just send everything over there. I don't know why. But yeah, they ignored other enemies around the area and just send everything after me. So they still spam a lot in terms of fleets. And that's a problem, in my opinion. But what also makes it a lot worse is, in the base game, you can raid trade routes, sure. You can blockade ports, you can also do that. But in this game, you can also bombard settlement buildings. And that's what makes it much, much worse. Because what this means is, in the base game, you can have your port blockaded, you can't make use of the port, alright, but everything else works just fine. In this game, the enemy can just send a fleet, like, let's say, over here, and not only can they blockade my port, they can also bombard my port, they can bombard my main settlement, set it on fire, and make it not be able to be used. They can bombard my farms, they can bombard my other buildings, and just make my income go down, down, down. Because I believe that when your buildings are damaged, you receive less income from them, and if they have any other kind of utility, like for example recruitment, you cannot use them. And that's massively annoying, because they will bombard everything, set everything on fire, and then you have to repair them, which costs a lot of money. I have an example over here, which I took recently. Let's see. If I want to repair this, for example, it costs over 1,000 koku. If I want to repair the farm, it's 7,000 koku. It's a lot of money spent, and in the meantime, you're losing money because of it. Your public order is going down because of devastation. So it's very annoying, because in the early game, and maybe in the mid game as well, you don't really have enough income to build very powerful fleets. So you kind of just have to deal with the enemy constantly bombarding everything, which can get very annoying. And if you let it get out of hand, you can just lose the game because of it. Because your income will go down by so much, you are no longer able to keep your armies, your public order will start going down as well, and you will just eventually be put in a very, very bad position and maybe just lose the game because of it. So naval warfare is better because ship battles are a lot more fun, but it's also much worse because of the naval bombardments of your territory. What else do we have? I find the game that also have a slower pace than the base game. This is not necessarily a bad thing, by the way. I'm mentioning it in the bad section just because some people might consider it to be a downside. But you also have some penalties for territorial expanse in this game. You don't want to trigger your Realm Divide event too early, because you want to prepare for it. And not only that, when you capture enemy territory, if you are capturing territory from a clan which has a different allegiance to yours, you need to convert the population. So going back to my recently captured settlement here, we can see this settlement has an allegiance 100% pro-emperor, because I just captured it. And what this means is, if they have the allegiance, if they don't have your allegiance, they have a different allegiance, this will apply you penalties. You see right here, non-clan allegiance is 0, predicted -1. It might seem like a small thing, but this keeps growing every single turn. You need to get this under control, otherwise your public order will just drop very rapidly. You're gonna get rebellions all over the place, and it's just not sustainable to keep expanding like that. So you typically need to have a garrison in your settlements, or you also need to wait some time in settlement with your army and with agents to try to convert it into your legions before you progress further. So it's just another element of slowing down the pace of the game. The other reason, just like we had, as I mentioned in the base Shogun 2 game, you have the Realm Divide event. So you can't really just expand very, very rapidly. There might be ways to do it, but I don't think that's the best way to do it. You want to stop and invest in your buildings, invest in your infrastructure, your income, build up your armies, improve your fleets, so that when Realm Divide does hit, you can be better prepared for what's ahead of you. So yeah, I think this game needs to take a slower pace, even more so than the base game. Another thing that I also consider to be a downgrade versus the base game is the voice lines. I don't know why they did that. I don't know if it's because of the whole modernization thing, I'm not sure. But in the base game, you have Japanese voice actors. Or at least they sound like Japanese voice actors. And you have Japanese lines, or you might even have some kind of English with a very big Japanese accent, which gives it a really cool factor because it's fun, it's enjoyable, and it just fits the theme quite well. In this game though, that's gone. What you have is like a very British guy speaking during the battle, which to me, it was very jarring when I first experienced it. I didn't like it at all, and I still don't like it today. I much prefer the voice lines of the base game. Something else to consider, talking a little bit about units here. Let's go back to my army. I find that in the base game, you can make use of basic units for a very, very long time. They can be useful for the majority of the game. I don't think that applies anymore in Fall of the Samurai. You can make use of them for a decent amount of time in the campaign. Some of the basic gun infantry, you can still use them to a certain degree of success if you are doing a siege defense, because they can still be powerful in the battlements, just shooting enemies down. But in actual field battles, basic units start underperforming quite rapidly. And I do like being able to use basic units in the games still while playing in the later stages of the campaign, and I'm kind of sad that I don't really have that in Fall of the Samurai. That's something I had in the base game and I don't have here. It can also be considered an upside, of course, because it kind of forces you to upgrade your armies and explore more variety in terms of the units you use in battles. So that can also be an upside in and of itself. Something that's also kind of weird, and it's kind of weird to explain, but higher tier units don't have an upkeep that's very much higher than basic units. And this might sound like a weird thing to mention, but this also reinforces the idea of just making you go for higher tier units earlier in the game if possible, which will make you abandon your earlier and more basic units a lot faster than you would in the other game. Personally, I would prefer to have more differences in terms of upkeep of a very high tier unit and a basic unit, but you know, it's not really a super major thing. It's just something I thought to mention because it's also very different from what we have in the base game. Another thing that I find to be somewhat a downgrade from the base game is in terms of the general combat. Combat in this game is very fun. It is a lot of fun. You will never hear me saying it's not fun. However, I do find that once you get to mid-game, it becomes kind of trivial. Combat is kind of solved around mid-game, and it's because of two major factors, I find. And one of them is, once you gain access to line infantry, because you have different types of infantry, gun infantry, and you have one tier of units which is called, let me see here, line infantry. So these would be line infantry units. Once you get access to line infantry, and you unlock a technology here, which is kneel fire, which is very basic. I'll just explain what this does so you have some notion. When you are fighting with these units, just like in any other Total War game, you select a unit in the battlefield and you can drag and kind of make a line with the units. So in this case you would have 150 men. You can spread those men, either forming like a very packed square, or you can form a large or a wide line. But even in your widest line, you are going to have at least 2 lines of units. And what this means with gun units is that the units behind the front line cannot shoot, because they would hit the people in front. They cannot shoot. So it seems kind of basic, but yeah, you have a technology here called kneel fire, and what this does is the line in front will kneel to fire, giving line of sight for the people behind them. Effectively, this makes line infantry twice as good as it was before. And at that point, you will start seeing your gun units being devastating in combat. It doesn't matter what's in front of them. It can be melee infantry, other line infantry, cavalry, it doesn't matter. They will shred. Especially if you also get access to suppression fire, which means anybody that's hit is going to be slowed. You just massacre anything in front of you. You don't even need to have a full army. You don't even need to have a lot of line infantry. Just a couple of units, like I would say like 5 or 6, can probably win any fight for you. The other major factor for trivializing combat is gaining access to artillery, especially once you get Armstrong guns. Oh my god. This has so much range and it's so devastating. There are multiple fights where I was up against an enemy army and I won the fight before the enemy army was actually able to reach my army. Because you inflict so many casualties with your artillery that you wound the enemy so much, you apply such a morale penalty that they will just start running away, routing and mass routing and just leaving the battle, and you just win like that. And if they do manage to survive the onslaught of constant bombardment from your artillery, they still have to go through a full line of kneeling line infantry. Honestly, I found once I had line infantry, kneel fire and artillery, I never lost another battle in the entire game. And it didn't matter if I was facing off against a weaker force, equal force, a bigger force, multiple stacks of enemy armies, it doesn't really matter. You just win. I'm exaggerating. If you get like, I don't know, 5 stacks of enemy armies, they will kill you. But it's very easy to beat and punch above your weight once you get access to those things. I think the AI, for example, does not use line infantry in the best way. I don't know. It becomes trivial after that point. Which, you know, it can be fun because you feel very powerful, but to me it's a downside because, you know, combat is solved, so there's no challenge anymore. Another thing I want to mention is, something I praised in the base game is the rock, paper, scissors thing, system of the units, where if you have, for example, I keep going back to my army, god damn it. If you have like a spear unit or a spear cavalry, spear units are historically good against cavalry, and you can make a lot of work in the base game with a basic spear unit versus any kind of cavalry. And if you use cavalry versus ranged, it's very powerful as well. So you have the whole rock, paper, scissors where one unit counters another one, which works quite well. In this game, you also have that to a certain degree. Like in the early game, you have spear levy, the basic spear units. These guys over here. They are also quite effective versus cavalry. But that rock, paper, scissors system starts to crumble once, again, once you start gaining access to higher tier units, especially higher tier modern units. Because it no longer matters the rock, paper, scissors element, because everything dies to your artillery and your line infantry. Cavalry is good versus ranged, they can't even reach the range units, they will just die trying to charge them. So that system is gone, and that makes me kind of sad. And all of these things just work for, you know, basic units no longer are viable. The diversity in terms of army, it makes it kind of hard to justify going for something else other than this, because this is just so effective, I found, that you really need to want to go for something different and maybe handicap yourself to play with other units, because this is just so good. Okay, yeah, so these are the negatives I found. I will say these are negatives, but overall I find the majority of them are not that detrimental to my enjoyment of the game. Most of them don't really impact my gameplay too much. It really is the naval warfare and the diplomacy that still kind of upset me. Everything else is just, you know, it would have been nice to have it better, but that's it. Okay, so good things about Fall of the Samurai. Just like I said with the bad portion, all the good things about Shogun 2 are also present here. I like the campaign map quite a bit. I like the way you maneuver around the map. I like the way you use your agents. I think that the combat in the game is very enjoyable. The naval warfare combat was improved. The gunpowder combat as well in field battles with your line infantry and artillery and all those things is very satisfying as well. So I think the combat is exceptional both in the base game as well as in Fall of the Samurai. So nothing bad there. Really cool. I like the strategic elements of playing with the islands, having special resources or buildings available in certain settlements. You even have taken into consideration like the fertility of the land to see if you want to lean more into your farm. This one, for example, is fertile soil. It will give me more money from farming. You might have other settlements which are barren, so you might not want to go for them. Just a bunch of very cool elements in the whole campaign map, which I find very enjoyable. And pretty much everything positive about Shogun 2 is also present in this game to some degree. So very cool game overall. I do like the whole Shogunate versus Imperial system. It is just a shame that it gets kind of ruined with the way that diplomacy works. You can just get betrayed outright. People swap allegiances out of nowhere, which to me is kind of breaks the system. But if you can make it work like I was kind of able to in this campaign, it's still cool. I like I said before, the fact that once Realm Divide hits, you solidify your allegiances and your enemies in a very good way. And it gives you a good notion of where you want to progress towards while you are in the campaign. So I do like having that system more than just having nothing like a free-for-all that we have in the base campaign. I like a lot, like I said before, the build tall, the being able to invest more in my infrastructure, in my settlements, I think is a clear improvement over what we have in the base game. So I've talked about this before actually while I was mentioning the comparison, so that's covered, but I do like the building system more in this game. I also find the technology trees to be more interesting because you have more elements as well. You have one side, you know, for civil policy, you have one for military technologies, and then you also have the modernization of your clan. The more modern you are able to make your clan, the more technologies you get to unlock. It might also give you some penalties like you see over there, -3 happiness from modernization. But for example, your general bodyguard is now cavalry with revolvers. So you have some cool things about the way technology works in this game. And I find it to be a little bit more complex and enjoyable than in the base game as well. So I do like the modernization aspect of this game. I like that we also have more time to complete the campaign. Because in the base game, each year is composed of 4 turns, 1 per season, right? So winter, spring, summer and autumn. In this game, you also have the 4 seasons, but for each season, you also have 4 turns per season, which means a year now lasts for 16 turns instead of 4 turns. That might not seem like a big deal, but I actually think it is, because there are mechanics tied to the seasons. If you are in winter and you are in enemy territory, your armies take attrition. In the base game, you take attrition for 1 turn. In this game, you're gonna take attrition for 4 turns. So, something that maybe earlier in the base game you would kind of ignore, in this game you need to consider a little bit more, because it's a lot of turns taking attrition. At the same time, there are bonuses for being in summer or spring or autumn, and you can get to enjoy those over a period of 4 turns instead of just something that constantly swaps all the time, which I don't like. So I do like having more time on each season in this game. Gunpowder warfare in Fall of the Samurai. I would say this is the main advantage of playing Fall of the Samurai over playing the base campaign. This is the main thing people praise when they talk about Fall of the Samurai. I can definitely see why. It's really cool to just have your infantry shooting against enemy infantry, outmaneuvering them with cavalry if possible. You can even have gun cavalry. You have a much more use of artillery in this game as well, which is very fun to use. So I really find the gunpowder gameplay to be very, very enjoyable and the main upside of the Fall of the Samurai expansion. Really, really cool. If you enjoy this time period and this type of warfare, you're definitely gonna like this game. And even if you don't, I didn't think I was gonna like the whole line infantry shooting each other and all that, but I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. So I actually found it to be quite fun. And the other positive thing about Fall of the Samurai, once again, is there is more strategy involving alliances and playing with allies. Again, we still have the problem of diplomacy not working the best way that it could, in my opinion, but at least once Realm Divide hits, you know who you can count on, and then you can expand with that in mind and make sure you make your allies stronger to also make your position stronger, working towards your victory goals. So I do like that because, as I said, in the base game, Realm Divide hits, you lose all your allies pretty much. In this game, it's different. You gain your allies, you solidify your allies. So I do like it quite a bit as well. Before we go into our... Well, I guess it's actually campaign overview already. So as I mentioned, I played with the Aizu clan. We started as Pro Shogun. We start in Fukushima. We currently have 3 allies, we have 3 enemies. Again, this is end of the campaign. I am trading with Western powers, and I am also trading with all of my allies here. This took 181 turns. We lost 4 provinces, we captured 38, which was the necessary amount for the victory condition. We had a lot of battles, and notice here a clear improvement, but this is also because I kind of ignored naval warfare for a long time. I did not have the income to support it, so I have a lot more land battles than I do in naval battles. And trust me, a good portion of this, I'm not gonna say half, but a good amount of this was spent as siege defenses in this settlement. I don't even know how many times this army... Well, this army got changed and improved. I captured guns from the enemy and all that. But I fought so many defensive sieges here, it was insane. So I kind of just... I could not support the fleets. So I just had to allow them to go for naval invasions and just fight the armies on land instead of targeting their ships. Only much later was I able to build a sizable fleet, and even then I only have like one proper fleet and a couple of scouts. But yeah, so looking over here, units lost, destroyed, blah blah blah, assassinated 10 enemy agents or generals with my own agents. We had 4 births, no deaths, 150 buildings constructed, technology researched, gained a lot of money, etc, etc. So, something to mention here is that this campaign lasted for 181 turns. My base campaign was around 90 turns. There's a main difference though, in that in this campaign I went for a domination campaign. And I did that to see if the domination campaign would provide a much different experience, and also to try and delay the Realm Divide event a little bit more. I think in terms of delaying Realm Divide, it didn't actually delay it by that much. I found it to be kind of the same thing as the previous times I tried it with the short or long victory conditions. But, oh well, I still went with it. I do find domination to be a little bit too long. It does become kind of a chore to work towards this number of provinces, especially like I said, because at mid-game you kind of have the combat solved. But still, we got through it. We captured our 38 settlements. We captured our important settlements in Musashi and Yamashiro. Our allies, or sorry, the shogunate forces took control of 73 provinces in total, so me and my 3 allies. And we beat it before the time limit of 1876 in 1871. Again, it might seem like we're very close, we're not. Each year is 16 turns, don't forget about that. Okay, so how did this campaign go? I'm just gonna go for a brief overview because this video is already kind of long. I tried to make them short, but then I rant over several things. So we started Fukushima, right? Start over here. This is a very large area. We begin with the Nagaoka clan allied to us, and they start in this region. So we don't have to worry about this region right from the start. To the north, we have shogunate clans as well. And to the south, we have our initial enemy over here, Imperial Clan, and another Imperial Clan over here, so another potential enemy in this region. The game kinda suggests going south, because we are at war with them, but after trying and failing, and I did fail this campaign so many times, I gave up on going down here. Instead, I went up. Reasons for this. The first reason is, this is a big area, and armies move very slowly in this game. I'll give you an example. If I want to move this army into this settlement, it would take me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turns. So you notice that by the different color in the arrows. So you have the yellow arrow, that's 1 turn, red arrow, 2 turns, blue, 3, green, 4, purple, 5. So 5 turns to reach here. Which means, if an enemy is coming from this area to try to attack me, I have enough time to at least build some kind of garrison to try and hold them off. And you know, defensive sieges in this game, like in the base game, you are heavily... you have heavy advantages over the enemy while fighting a defensive siege. So, a few number of units can actually hold a settlement quite well, even against a much larger army. So I wasn't worried about this clan over here at the start. And the other reason was, just like I did in the base game, I wanted to move north because this would allow me to capture territory that, if successful, I would be able to control a corner of the map. So if I have control over this corner of the map, I don't have to worry about this side, because there's nothing here. I don't have to worry about the east, there's nothing there either. I only have to worry about the south, which is much better than our starting situation where we are surrounded. So that was my plan over here. I also found a better degree of success making military alliances early with the clans down here. So the Josei, I think Edo at some point as well. Even if that meant entering some wars on their side. I didn't actually have to fight them, thankfully. But not only did I have the advantage of having the military alliance, which I think makes them less likely to betray you, since I did not take out this clan over here and this clan over there, they had something to go for. And I think diplomacy-wise, clans, if they have something to do, they are less likely to betray you. So if they have an imperial clan over here, being Shogun, they will go for them, they will not go for you. However, if they have nothing else to go for in the vicinity, even though I think that's stupid and they could just take a ship and invade somewhere else, if they don't have any dangerous neighbor, and if they find your position to be kind of weak, they will go for you. Sorry, had to drink some water there. So yeah, since they had some clans over here to worry about, they didn't bother with me, so I was able to actually expand north and start conquering territory over here. Just like in the base game, I took it kind of slow. I also found that being aggressive in this game was not paying off at all. So, moved up, developed my infrastructure, started developing my income, improving my armies, and only then start moving north. Eventually, took control of this entire island. I think I had a vassal here. I made a vassal in this area, I believe, but later I had to take him out as well. So I took control of this entire island, and once I got to this point, I stopped. I did not go anywhere else. I stopped. I did not want to go in any other war, and I think I even negotiated peace agreements, possibly, with other clans. I just wanted to stand still and improve my infrastructure. Eventually, though, the clan up here, which was also pro-shogunate, and they were also very friendly and trading with me, did the thing. They swapped into Imperial, declared war on me, so they kind of precipitated my plans of taking control over this island. So yeah, I moved up, conquered this entire region, and took control of all of it. I think at this point, I was still not under Realm Divide, so I had no more wars. Once again, I stopped. I had all of this here. I stopped and developed my infrastructure. At some point, however, you will notice you see here my allies have a lot of territory, right? They have all of this and they have all of this. So you might think they were doing very, very well and they carried the entire game. No, not the case. What actually happened was the Nagaoka clan and the Josei clan, which was over here, started a war between themselves. So they had Imperials over here, but they were stupid and busy fighting each other, even if both of them were pro-Shogun. And I let this go. I let them be occupied among themselves. I did not interfere. I had, I think, another ally over here or something. I don't remember exactly. But it got to a point where the Josei turned Imperial as well. And not only that, having the pressure of Josei over here, plus the pressure of the Imperial clans from the west, they started conquering a lot of territory over here. And it got to the point where the Nagaoka clan only had their base territory. They only had this one over here. This clan only had this territory over here. And this guy, I think, only had this settlement, I believe. I don't remember. But they each had only a single settlement. So I wanted to wait some more time before I went into Realm Divide, but this kind of forced my hand. That's also a big reason why I don't have enough fleets, because I did not have time to prepare fleets for Realm Divide. So, since they forced my hand, I moved my armies down, started a war against the Josei. I also took the opportunity to capture this island. It wasn't hostile, but it was part of a pro-shogun clan that only had this one settlement. And this is a cool settlement because it's an isolated island. It had a very good defensive position. It has a gold mine. So it had a lot of very good resources for me to want to capture this. So I also took control of this island here. So I had control of this entire region, including this island. I started a war with the Josei. I captured a couple of settlements here. I then lost them, but I was able to kill off most of their armies. While they were weakened, this ally over here, the Odawara clan, took over the territories. During that war, the Nagaoka also was able to take some territory over here and kind of become a little bit stronger. With that, since I had my allies over here, I took a ship, I sailed all the way over here, and took control of Kaga and also Echizen. And the reason why you see so much territory over here captured by my allies is because I made the mistake of... where is it? Looting. I looted 2 settlements. I can even see it in my general, I think. Where is he? So many agents, Jesus. Where is he, man? If I go over here, I go for my army. Yeah, we'll see over here. Looting, -2, and 1 betrayed alliance because I think I refused to join a war. Or maybe it was when I killed my vassal. That might also be it. But yeah, I looted twice, which I promptly regretted. Because what happens is when you loot a settlement, you gain a lot of money, which I invested in my other buildings. But the settlement takes a massive public order penalty, just massive. You cannot leave this settlement with your army unless you wanted to rebel the turn after. So I actually spent a lot of time over here and in this settlement as well, just making sure I could keep these positions and I couldn't really move any further than that. I did the same thing down here with my secondary army. I moved over here with my ship. I conquered Sagami. I looted it. No, I conquered this one, looted this one, regretted it. I had to stay here for a bunch of time, and then I kind of went by foot or by ship. The ship is still here actually. I went by ship into this area, traversed some friendly territory, conquered Iga over here, and then started moving into this region as well. So at this point, my ally, Nagaoka, had taken a lot of territory. They were quite strong. The Odawara had taken enough territory over here and then expanded down here and also over here. They were not as strong, but they still pulled their weight. And these guys did nothing. They just stayed here the entire time. They didn't help at all. So eventually what happened was I was able to solidify my position in these 2 territories over here. I had my second army moving into this region, so I started conquering with the secondary army in the southern portion of this island. My main army went from the north. My ally actually snagged 1 settlement there from me, took control of this entire thing. My allies took control of this island over here, and then I invaded this island by foot, taking control of settlements over here. Main army moving northwards, and then my secondary army moved south. So we moved this way with 1 army. We have a settlement here in Yuga, and the main army moved over here, and eventually we won the game by capturing Nagasaki. This made it our 38th settlement. So yeah, we had a lot of ground to cover, a lot of territory taken. It was interesting, the situation over here of beating the Josei partly, then losing to them and losing some territory, but then my ally was able to recapture it. And it was really enjoyable seeing my allies kind of capitalize on the weakened enemies, because again, I do think there's a lot of anti-player bias in this game, so the enemy just kept wanting to go against me and just leaving other territory undefended, and my allies were just, you know, just taking control of everything. So, very cool aspect. I do think my campaign enjoyment improved significantly once Realm Divide hit, and I was able to rely on my allies, and then just make my way into victory. It also made a very big difference. Like I said, I had a lot of failed campaigns, and pretty much every single campaign that I had failed because of what I thought were going to be friendly clans or even allies just swapping allegiance and declaring war on me, making me become surrounded, and I just kind of gave up on the campaign because I didn't want to continue the campaign that way. But yeah, really solid game. I can definitely recommend Fall of the Samurai if you enjoy Total War, especially if you want to see gameplay with gunpowder units. I think it's a very cool game. The campaign experience can be good with the problems of diplomacy and the naval warfare, but I will still say the majority of this game is very positive, and I really want to play with other clans and explore the game even further with, you know, other builds, maybe try out a traditional only army because it did seem cool, play more with ninjas. I did not unlock a unit that I really want to try, which is the... where is it, man? Come on. Here. The Gatling guns. I unlocked Gatling guns, but I never employed them. Because Armstrong guns, the cannons were just killing everything. I didn't even need to bother with upgrading the army anymore. So I didn't use them. I really want to see how they play. But yeah, really enjoyable experience. Looking forward to playing some more Fall of the Samurai. Really cool game. With that, my friends, we have reached the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Questions, suggestions, if you want to share your own thoughts about Shogun 2 or Fall of the Samurai, leave a comment below. If you enjoy this type of content, consider subscribing for more. Many more videos coming out soon, and I hope to see you all in some other video. Until then, stay safe, everyone.